The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power, out Friday on Amazon Prime Video, is the most high-priced TV series ever made. Amazon bought TV rights to LOTR for $250 million, about 1,998 crore rupees returned in 2017, before shelling out any other $465 million, about 3,712 crore rupees, to build the infrastructure that would ultimate the Rings of Power across its run. The studio has made a 5-season commitment promising 50 hours really worth of episodes. The complete manufacturing is predicted to price over $1 billion, about 7,993 crore rupees, which is over 2.5 instances what Warner Bros. Dumped into Peter Jackson's award-winning film trilogy. The Rings of Power is a prequel set heaps of years prior to the events in The Lord of the Rings and explores the giant records surrounding the Second Age in the fantastical realm of Middle-earth. In this series, showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick Mackay will attempt and condense all the primary affairs leading up to the creation of Sauron's ring, aka the One Ring, or effective artifact that can manipulate the minds of dwarves, elves and men. This also capacity that followers can sooner or later get a taste of the Dark Lord's origins story as he forges the ring in the flames of Mount Doom and prepares for war. That said, you won't no longer watch the original LOTR trilogy or the Hobbit films to recognize the context of the Rings of Power. For one, this series is no longer utterly sourced from J.R.R. Tolkien's mainline books, as it will expand upon the appendices to create a fictionalized illustration of Old Middle-earth. Secondly, this is a prequel, so feel free to use it as a beginning point and in time carve your way into the Peter Jackson films. As for acquainted characters, there are only two: Galadriel Morvith Clark and Elrond Robert Arayamo, each of whom have generally distinctive personalities from what you see in the Quit Game. Then there's the ultimate populace, who are both nowhere close to being born yet or have not arrived in Middle-earth. Remember, this is set hundreds of years before, making for quick personality introductions and deaths. Also see The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power to Cobra Kai 5, the biggest TV shows in September. The stories and the true occasions involving its LOTR characters are very one of a kind, because what we're dealing with here is a total new age. Having said that, the issues are very similar. It's these classic Tolkien issues of exact versus evil, of underdog stories involving small people being tasked with very challenging missions to raise out. Payne stated in an interview in regards to how the Rings of Power's theme differs from LOTR movies: these are tales of friendship and about humans overcoming evil. It's the story of the temptation of energy and its corrupting nature, and what happens when human beings of more than a few one-of-a-kind species in Middle-earth get power. With that, here's everything you need to be aware of about The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power. The Rings of Power premieres Friday, September 2nd at 6:30 a.m. IST, completely on Amazon Prime Video in India. That's in line with the world release, with the LOTR prequel sequence commencing Thursday, September 1st at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the US. The Rings of Power debuts with the first 2 episodes. The final 6 episodes drop weekly on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. IST in India. The LOTR show will be handy in English, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada. After starting on September 2nd, the 8-episode The Rings of Power Season 1 is slated to conclude on October 14. Robert Arayamo as Elrond, the half-elven architect. In a still from The Rings of Power photo credit Ben Rothstein, Prime Video, fresh off A24's Saint Maud. Clark assumes the function of Galadriel, an elven warrior who foresees the arrival of evil in Middle-earth. Most audiences are probably to recognize this golden-haired elf from the Peter Jackson trilogy, who at the time was once played by Cate Blanchett. The immortal heroine is centuries away from ruling the woods of Lothlorien, and here in the Second Age is purely driven by using vengeance. Following her brother's dying in and before war with the Rings of Power, Clark intends to mission Galadriel's richly deserved serenity and wisdom, qualities that have been unusual in elves again in The Day. Joining her crusade is Elrond, a half-elven architect and politician in the lands of Riamo. Mindhunter portrays the ageless character who struggles to live up to his family's legacy. Both his parents are considered as heroes who saved the world, whilst his brother Elros went on to create Númenor. Choosing the gift of immortality, Elrond is on a mission to trying to find his purpose in the Rings of Power. Little does he know he grows up to end up the Lord of Rivendell. Right now he is certainly in a second of who am I? He's closer to being an orphan than he is to being a lord. However, he's making an attempt so difficult to be the herald of Gil-galad, a Riamo said in an interview. Ruling the aforementioned island kingdom of Númenor is Miriel, the Queen Regent, played by using Cynthia Adi Robinson Arrow. She instructions the populace of men descended from Elros while her father is gravely ill, while the island and its part ruler maintain a sacred area in Tolkien's lore. This would be the first time the personality is depicted on screen. She is a chief who is thoughtful, a chief who has an ethical compass and moral center, wants to hold the relative peace and steadiness of Númenor, but additionally is conscious of the murmurings and the rumblings in the streets. Robinson stated in regards to her character being a half-queen, Cynthia Adi Robinson is Miriel, the Queen Regent of Númenor. Photo credit Ben Rothstein. Prime Video. Under her command serves Isildur, the trusty Númenorian sailor who eventually goes on to discover the Kingdom of Gondor and chop the One Ring off Sauron's hand. His greed and refusal to break the artifact leads to his downfall. The experience to which is explored in the Rings of Power, played via Maxim Baldry. Isildur is now not a fundamental persona in the LOTR franchise. However, co-showrunner McKay wanted to discover his story more in a way that ends in tragedy than foolishness. Up until the conflict with Sauron, he will be represented as an optimistic man. Owain Arthur Babylon performs Prince Durin IV. Included in an unrecognizable amount of amber facial hair and prosthetics that would do justice to the Dwarf Prince. If you've seen The Fellowship of the Ring, you would possibly realize the deserted caverns of Khazad Dûm, which were blanketed in cobwebs, skeletal remains and ruins. However, in the Rings of Power, that domain nevertheless stands sturdy under Durin's command, which he guidelines. Beside his pricey wife Dissa, while the probability to play the dwarf chief seemed jovial, Owain had to spend 3 hours in the makeup chair each day. Sophia Nomvete plays Dissa, princess of the dwarven metropolis of Khazad Dûm. Billed as a maternal figure, she continues a playful relationship with Durin IV, regularly getting into stupid arguments and resolving them with lots of love. Dissa also occurs to be the first woman dwarf to be featured in any of Tolkien's on-screen adaptations and comes fashioned with dim facial hair sideburns like the different female dwarves. Brownon is one of the newest characters created for the Rings of Power, played by way of Nazanin Boniadi. Hotel Mumbai. The maiden hails from the less-known Southlands and works as a healer for its citizens as a human. She is below the ever-so-oppressive watch of the elves, constantly on the lookout to maintain her people secure and liberate them. What's interesting is that she is romantically concerned with an Elf Arendir, a relationship her son despises, reflecting the hatred the races have for each other. Nazanin Boniadi performs Brownon, a healer in the Southlands photo credit. Ben Rothstein, Prime Video. Ismael Cruz Cordova, the Mandalorian, performs Arendir, a Sylvan elf who is stationed at Southlands to hold an eye out for the human race, human beings that aligned themselves with Sauron. Centuries ago, as an outcast, he starts mingling with the enemies, ultimately falling into a forbidden relationship with Brownon. The pair go on to look at mysterious affairs in the hills of Southlands whilst hiding from different elven soldiers. Cordova additionally happens to be the first person of coloration to play an elf in any Tolkien adaptation. Netflix's The Crown alum Charles Edwards performs Celebrimbor, one of the pivotal figures in the Lord of the Rings franchise. This elf is a brilliant forger whose recognition proceeds for the duration of Middle-earth for crafting the titular rings of power. His introduction is a monumental match in the lore as he gets manipulated by means of the Dark Lord Sauron into forging the One Ring, putting off the perilous occasions we know from the movies. Like most other characters in this list, Celebrimbor was once now not explored nicely in the books, so this show serves as a gateway into his personality. The pint-sized hobbits did no longer exist in the course of the Second Age. Instead, in the Rings of Power, we will be brought to their ancestors, the Harfoots, who are a nomadic neighborhood that still has now not found a region to call home. One such key discern is Nori Brandyfoot, performed by way of Markella Kavanagh, who takes a craving for adventure backyard, something the different Harfoots deprive themselves of. Joining her is high-quality pal Poppy Proudfellow Megan Richard. Together they stumble upon a mysterious man who seems to have fallen from the sky as a meteor. Markella Kavanagh Center performs Nori Brandyfoot, a Harfoot who loves adventuring in the open photo credit. Ben Rothstein, Prime Video. Another elusive persona to be featured in the Rings of Power is Halbrand, a human warrior who accompanies Galadriel across the sundering seas. Charlie Vickers breathes life into this armored knight about whom information is sparse. He's coming from this place in his past where he is making an attempt to let go, Vickers notes in an interview, but in meeting Galadriel she starts to illuminate some matters in his thinking and things about his past and his destiny that he maybe hadn't considered. Other additions consist of the Harfoots chief Sadok Burrows, performed by Lenny Henry, including a contact of comedic comfort to the upcoming Amazon Prime series. Then there is Tristan Gravel Utopia as Pharazôn, cousin and right-hand man to Queen Regent Miriel. Benjamin Walker plays Gil-galad, the High King of the Elves mentioned in Tolkien's Lotr poem referred to as the Fall of Gil-galad. The Rings of Power will make bigger upon that lore. The Rings of Power also stars Ema Horvath as Isildur's sister Arianne and Lloyd Owen as his father Elendil. Trainspotting's Peter Mullen performs King Durin III, the ruler of the Dwarven city, while Tyro Mahavidan is cast as Theo Bronwyn's teenage son who hates the elves. Here's the legitimate synopsis for The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power from Prime Video. The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power brings to displays for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled Second Age of